So welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Griffin. I am a CSTA South Dakota board member. I'm the one that's been kind of working back behind here, putting together this event on just exploring cybersecurity. I thought it'd be a great idea to reach out to Black Hills Information Security and just see if they could talk with us about just about cybersecurity and give us some thoughts on what we should be doing within K-12 and also talk about what it's like to be a pen tester. So to our BHIS members, I pass it along to you if you'd like to give us some introductions and then take it off from there.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll take the lead from BH perspective. So my name's Tim Fowler. I'm offensive security analyst with BHS. Been here a little over 3 years. Also on here we have John Malone, who is also a fellow tester. We have Kelly Tarala, who is not a tester, but we classify her as a queen of GRC and all things GRC. Big fan of Kelly. And then we also have Brian on here that's heralding from New Zealand. I have no idea what time zone what time it is where he's at. But anyway, and so we've got a combination of people here, various different experiences and stuff, not just solely focusing on pen testing and things like that. Try to give you a little bit of gambit. I don't know that we really have a ton like pre-planned a lot of it. And so, kind of answer any questions, go over anything that you guys have. We're pretty much an open book from that perspective. And just thank you for having us.
All right, thanks, Tim. I guess I'll go next. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is John Malone. I'm another tester here at BHIS. Primarily, I do a lot of tests involving internal and external networks. Also do a lot of social engineering assessments and physical security assessments as well. Good to meet all of you.
Well, hi, everybody. I'll go next. I'm Kelly Tarala. Tim mentioned I do GRC work, and maybe that's an acronym you're not familiar with. Excuse me. Governance, risk, and compliance is what GRC is. Doesn't sound very exciting, but it really is. What I do is, so we've got exciting stuff with pen testing, but pen testing usually falls within a framework. We need to know what we can and can't do, what the regulations say. And believe it or not, a lot of regulations require that organizations do a pen test, if not twice a year, at least once a year. So basically, what I do is I help organizations understand what they need to do, what they have to do, and kind of what the rules are. And again, as my coworkers have mentioned, I'm really glad to be here this evening.
Guess that makes it me now, does it? Okay. Brian Godfrey, I've been with BHIS for about 3 years. Very appreciative of John taking me on and giving me the opportunity. Pretty much 12 months self-study, went into the SOC, found we needed some more qualifications and training, and I've sort of transferred over to the on-demand portion with Antisyphon, looking after students, student support, resources in the course development and that sort of thing. So in theory, when you open one of our classes, all the resources should work if I've done my job right. And it's about 1:15 in the afternoon, just for Tim's benefit.
Okay. All right. That's reasonable. You're during your business day.
All right. So just some questions on like what is a typical day for all of you and what you do.
Well, I'll go first. I don't know if we necessarily have typical days. So most of us are consultants. And well, what does that mean? Well, usually consultant means you're on billable work. But one thing that makes our company a little bit different than perhaps other companies is we really believe in community, because if one company isn't secure, or one organization or one school or even one school district, then none of us are secure. So we spend a lot of time building community, sharing resources, sharing tools, checklists, that sort of thing. So a good part of my day is participating in webinars, blogs. I deal with information that maybe isn't necessarily the sexiest information, regulations, laws, data breach notifications. So sometimes my coworkers will come to me and they'll say, what does HIPAA say about encryption? Or what's the PCI standard on password length? And I'll say, hey, I know that it's this. So I like to think that I save my coworkers and maybe some of our clients some time looking up information that may be a bit dry. So that's kind of usually what my days look like. But Tim, what do your days look like?
Not that. Thank God. I spent a little time in the GRC world, and if you talk to Kelly long enough, she'll try to convince you that I absolutely love it. I am a fan because I do believe fundamentally, policy is the only lever that we can actually use in our organizations to enact change. As a pen tester, predominantly, I'm doing consulting work. Typically, it's going to depend on the various type of engagement that I have going on at that particular time. But for me, it's a lot of it is we all typically are remote. We've got some people that are based in and around Sturgis, South Dakota, but most of the testing population is we are spread out on three continents, 4 countries. So we're pretty diverse. But for my day, it's really just come in. I a lot of times I'll have stuff running overnight, scans, different things like that. Try to start the day figuring out what's happened overnight. Hopefully nothing's gone down, nothing's bad's happened. Check the email and stuff. But it's really just the entire day is really geared towards just providing the customer the absolute most impact and benefit for the type of test that they have. I kind of joke, and it's not a very pretty picture, but it's like really, I'm a professional report writer that happens to pen test between paragraphs. And it's not really, like I said, it's not a very sexy appeal, but that's like the reality of what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, our customers, they're paying for that report. That's the deliverable that we have to show them. That's like, hey, here's all the work we did. Here's what we found. Here's the recommendations and things that you can do better. But one of the things that is awesome about this job is really no 2 days are the same. No test is the same, even though there are times you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. The environments are different, the clients are different, the people that we're interacting with is different. So it really kind of keeps you on your toes. But yeah, and then when we're not testing, often a lot of us are doing various types of research, blog posts, different things, developing content and courses for Antisyphon, and so there's never a dull moment.
Tim, what's one of your hobbies or pet projects?
I knew you were going to ask. So one of my big pet projects over the last 18 months is I've been applying the concepts that I use from in my day job as a pen tester, as an offensive guy, and assessing our overall security posture within the space domain, specifically cybersecurity in space systems. As a result of that, I've developed a class for it, a couple of workshops. I've actually even developed custom hardware in the form of a CubeSat that I had the opportunity to use in class last week. Last week at Wildwest Hacking Fest. And so this is just kind of one of the passions that I have. I grew up loving space, kind of put that aside for a while as I started developing my cybersecurity career. And now it's kind of the genesis has come back that I can really take what I've experienced over the years from a cybersecurity perspective and kind of paint the picture of what we're doing wrong in space, how we can do better, and the things that we need to be looking out in the future.
How exciting is that? I understand that maybe some of our satellites aren't running the latest, greatest operating system. Is that true, Tim?
That would be the general consensus. Yep. The way I look at it, is if you're familiar or have a concept of what operational technology or industrial control systems were about 15 to 20 years ago. That's where we're at on space systems. It was a lot of security through obscurity. Our stuff's so complicated, nobody can mess with it kind of thing. And as I literally spent about half of the class showing case study after case study where that's just not true. And we've got to kind of put these biases and these assumptions away and going like, hey, we have to do better. Because unfortunately, the things that really made a difference in the ICS world and the OT world was regulations and GRC. They were basically said, you guys have to start doing this. And we started to see things get better and better and better. We're not quite at that point yet within the entire space domain and space sector. I think it's coming, but we definitely can learn a lot from the mistakes that we've made in the past to try to prevent them. But when you consider we've got stuff that is flying that's been up there since the 70s, yeah, it's not exactly the most up-to-date system.
John, what does your typical day look like?
So it's pretty similar to what Tim mentioned. You know, it really depends on the test. No two environments are the same. No two customers are the same. And not only that, but you know, different tests are a thing too. Like I've had, I guess for a typical network test, usually my mornings start with me going over things like scan results or kind of looking at systems from kind of like up level. And then over the course of the day, I'll drill down further and further and further into things like looking at different software version numbers, looking at patch notes. If I find outdated software, I'll see if I can find exploits that are anywhere online, or if I do find exploits and they don't work, maybe I'll try and rewrite those or reproduce the steps manually to see if I can get any systems to pop. But yeah, definitely like Tim said, I am testing between writing paragraphs. Report writing is probably, I want to say, at least 80% of every engagement, you know, because we follow this whole report as you go philosophy, which is great because it makes sure that our reports are nice and concise and that we never really, you know, we don't really miss details when we follow that whole reporting philosophy. But yeah, lots of report writing, lots of rereading said report to make sure that it's nice and concise and that, you know, we've got screenshots where they should be. And I'd say also on some engagements, a lot, or at least some of the day can be spent interacting with customers. I know a lot of people like to get progress reports on how their test is going. So usually I'll send little courtesy pings out at the beginning and end of each workday to let people know what I'm doing and then what I found. And yeah, I'd say when I'm not testing, I'm usually like Tim, you know, doing research on different things or working on classes.
I like it. So what I've heard so far is a curiosity for learning new things or testing and trying new things. And I bet if I were to ask our coworkers, you know, what's your background or what's your degree in, I think we would find a variety of backgrounds. I know we've got people with math degrees, English degrees, no degrees. We've got musicians, we've got bakers, cooks. I think that's the thing that I find kind of interesting about cybersecurity is it doesn't require a certain type of degree or background. It requires curiosity and tenacity. And Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Tenacity, yes, that's what partly got me here, to be fair. I sort of come from a background of, in one form or another, about 4 decades of first response, and then got in a situation where I needed a job, had to completely change, started taking whatever courses I could get my hands on to try and learn something so that somebody would be interested in me, networked like mad and ran into a lot of, I suppose, industry leaders, industry influencers like John Strand, Josh Mason, Jack Scott, Neil Bridges, those sorts of people. Thanks largely to Josh bringing me into his community and introducing me to great folks. Found Antisyphon, started doing some of the courses, started figuring out that I could actually go to a lot more of John's courses than I thought I could. And one day with about 1,000 people in class, I went, just curious, anybody have a job that I can do fully remote here in New Zealand, 12 months self-study, no degree, no certificates, need a job? And I thought 1,000 people, somebody might have something. Got to the end of the class with an Ask Me Anything. John read it out and, yes, send me your resume and we'll see what happens. And 2 months later, laptop arrived and I'm in the SOC.
Brian, for those who may not be familiar, what's a SOC and what does a typical day as a SOC analyst look like?
Security Operations Center. So we're like, I guess one way of looking at it would be like the different schools that you represent. All your computer systems are hopefully logging different things that are happening in the system. They get shipped over to BHIS, go through our filtering, and then if our filters pick up something that's not quite right, it'll flick up an alert. A SOC analyst will pick up that ticket, have a look at what's happened, try and establish whether it's a legitimate use or not. If it's not, why, who started it, where's it coming from, do all that investigation side of things. We love catching our red teamers, our pen testers. We've caught them a couple of times, I believe, but yeah, it's really just investigating stuff that's going funny in your networks and then trying to tell you where it came from, who's doing it, why they're doing it, and how to stop it happening.
I like it. So I know we're talking with elementary school or secondary education here. One of the things that I find intriguing with Black Hills is we dabble in things that aren't necessarily just cybersecurity. We have a comic book, we have webinars. One of the things I want to ask you guys is what influenced you in your appreciation for cybersecurity? We know with Tim it was space. Were there particular books, video games, movies that really sort of piqued your interest in this field?
From my point of view, I started off back in high school for me, which was like age 13 to give you an age range sort of thing, back with the Apple Mac or Apple IIe systems with the 5.25 floppy drive, and there wasn't really a network even that we were connected to. We spent, at one stage, 4 of us spent 2 weeks, every break we had during the school day, typing the code out of a magazine so we could play Pac-Man on the machine. And then we had to double side the floppy disk so that we could store all the code.
Was that
when teachers found out that's how we did it, they went around and started making sure we only had single-sided floppies and things. But yeah, from there, the school graciously let me take one of those machines home over some summer holidays for us. Went on just about every job I've had since has had some form of computer system that's been completely different. I think when I was in the Air Force, I knew about 4 different networks and 4 different systems just to do my logistics job. And it's just all, I've tinkered with all of them one way or another. And I could do things on the Air Force machines that some of the officers and people that were supposed to know how to do it weren't. And it was like, how did you do that? Oh, X-Tree Gold or whatever else. And it just got to the point where I can't do these things anymore. I need a job. What am I good at? Oh, let's try IT. And I hope I'm getting good at it.
I think
yet, but I hope.
That's a great word, tinkerer. I love it. John, how about you?
So, like I guess like a lot of people in my age group, I'm 37. Not that that matters, but when I was younger, I loved PC gaming, and I don't have quite as much time to do that now. Now that I've got 2 kids, I don't know if you can hear them all downstairs. I am sorry about that if they're coming through, but my dad made a deal with me. He's like, hey, if you want a game on this PC, it was our first PC, and I think this is in like 1992 or something, but he's like, you're going to have to learn how the terminal works. And I'm like, what's that? And he showed me, and it was DOS. And that was kind of what originally got me behind the command line. I learned how to change directories, do a bunch of simple stuff. But after a while, being the curious type, I was like, hey, there's no way that all this thing can do is play games. Like, there's got to be more stuff I can do with this. So I read a few books on DOS, eventually got into computer networking, put 2 and 2 together and found out that I could do a lot of cool stuff over a network from the command line. Couple suspension papers later for my high school, I knew that this is definitely what I wanted to do for a career. But at that point in time, I didn't really think there was much of a market for penetration testing skills as there are today. So I ended up going into physical security instead, which is where I got my physical background from. Learned how to do a bunch of cool stuff, break into buildings, pick locks, talk my way into places, that kind of thing. And those are skills that I think have helped me a whole lot at where I am today.
Well, John, let me ask you a couple follow-up questions on that. You mentioned pen testing and picking locks. Is that legal, John?
I mean, I get as far as like owning the tools go, I mean, that might change depending on state to state. I know here where I live in Chicago, it's perfectly legal to carry lock picks with you, but you are not allowed to carry a bump key. That's a felony. But as far as like lockpicks and stuff, it's great for testing. It's a skill that I think every tester should have, because if you ever are doing an on-site engagement, you can get into all sorts of good stuff if you know how to bypass, door security, server closets, MDF rooms, whatever have you. And and if you've got physical access to a machine, that opens up so many different attack paths.
Gosh, and I just tried to get into my sister's diary when I was that age. So, Tim, how about you? What influenced you when you were younger?
So I think for me, I grew up, we always had a computer in the house. The first computer that I ever was exposed to was a Tandy 1000. Um, that my dad had, and somehow my sister and I, just banging on the keyboard, rewrote the caps lock function. So it was like constantly inverse. It took my dad like a day and a half to figure out how to redo that. I don't know how we did it. It couldn't have been too complex. But it was just, I was always around computers. But for me, computers were a tool. And for me, computers were a tool to obtain information and data. We were, as probably one of the first families that, at least in the area, that connected to the internet and various things. And so I was exposed to like the greater capabilities of computers fairly early on. It really wasn't until after high school that I really kind of started paying attention to the fact is like, hey, there's like security thing, like issues with these, and looking and understanding how, and especially at that time, how trivial it was to break certain things. I remember one of the kind of first exposures I had was I needed to reset an administrative password on a Windows XP box um, for a family member. And so I was like trying to figure out how to do this, and I found this tool called NT Password, and essentially it was just a Linux distribution that you'd boot into it, and it would load the SAM Hive and just blank out the administrative password. And so like does like, and then you boot up the Windows, and it would just, you just hit enter, and at the login prompt, and it would log you straight in. It's like, oh, that's kind of powerful. And so I started working for a mom and pop IT shop doing residential stuff, uh, building networks, wireless networks, various things like that, doing the traditional like wiping computers and triaging them for antivirus and stuff, and really just kind of, it just kind of happened organically for me, that it's just like, hey, this is something like I'm interested in. I love building computers, and once I learned how to build them, and it was like, how can I figure out how to break them, and that was really where the software side of things came in. And then just kind of advanced my career, started working in IT in an enterprise manufacturing facility. I recommend everybody does that, but not for long, because you will burn out real quick. But it exposed me to a lot, and I just kind of started gravitating in the kind of tendencies that I have from a mindset of, I wonder. Really started to develop, and through a couple of different jobs, and then 2014, I think. Yeah, about 2014, I decided, I was like, hey, we're gonna go full bore on this security thing, see what happens. Left all job security that I had, and but it's worked out pretty well.
I like it. So what I've heard so far is curiosity, tenacity, tinkering, thinking outside of the box, good writing skills. I heard you don't necessarily have to be a good speller because there's autocorrect. Oh, wait, that's just for me. But
no, that is for me as well.
so I know our audience here is teachers, and the question I have for you guys is there anything that you would like to pass on to the teachers who may be listening to this, skills that they might be able to encourage, or skills that may seem atypical for somebody interested in cybersecurity? I know that's a hard question. You already mentioned report writing. I think that's probably atypical, meaning you think, oh, you got to be good at programming and tinkering. But us as consultants, we have to be really good communicators. We have to be really good at writing reports and speaking goodly English. Any other thoughts or ideas on skills that teachers can embrace and encourage it with their students?
I have a bunch, but they're not conducive to a productive classroom. Because and I say that, but and honestly, a lot of the skill sets that we have collectively are the very things that made us very challenging students. Um and like I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I was a nightmare. And that's a direct quote from no less than 6 teachers. And it's tough because like some that general curiosity of, like, asking a lot of the why questions, and you give an answer that's a perfectly legitimate answer, and then you get the why, or why is that, these are the kind of threads that we are just constantly pulling at. I mean, John and I we were on a call today, just hanging out. We were both doing some testing. It's like, I've never done this. Let's try this. Let's see. Like, I'm not getting the result I want, so let's see if we can bend it to our will, kind of things. So, general curiosity, just unique problem solving. One of the things that I struggled with in school was always the show your work process. As an adult, I get it, I understand, but as a toddler or as a kid, I just, like, if I know the answer, does it really matter how I got to that answer? But I had a couple of teachers that really did help embrace me. It's like, you got to share your work, but it's like, if you've got a novel way of solving it, it's like, you're not wrong. Like, there's multiple ways to solve a lot of problems. And our brains just kind of work in different ways, and just kind of like being able to pinpoint and kind of lock in on that. Obviously, you've got, as educators, you have a specific curriculum you have to teach, and certain stuff, but there are certain things, you can just kind of be cognizant of. And I don't really know how within the normal classroom setting that you can really kind of enable those and stuff without losing complete control. But those are just some of the skill sets that I've seen over the years, that I personally have, that my toddler is already exhibiting those same traits and stuff. And it's, while it can be potentially detrimental to the overall flow of a class or something like that, it's really interesting. Those are the kids that I've, in my experience, that really, when they start showing that ability to laterally think and go outside of the box, it's like, well, yeah, you answered it this way, but I also can do it that way. Those are skills that, as much as we can, need to try to encourage, but also keep them boxed in just a little bit, because otherwise we'll just go completely off the rails.
I guess to piggyback off of what Tim said regarding skills that we can be cognizant of, I think good communication and listening skills are super important too. Because sometimes you'll be working with clients who, might not understand something and they don't tell you, and you kind of have to be able to pick up on those, those little hesitations in the conversation, or be willing to open up dialogue yourself. Even like, if I'm working with someone, I have a tendency to say, are there any questions? Is there anything that I could do a better job of explaining? Or another good question is, how do we all feel about that? Like, if we're going to touch something sensitive, how do we all feel about that? That's a really good question to ask usually. And these are questions that I think, even in like a classroom setting, you could encourage your students to ask. And I think there'd be a lot of healthy takeaways. That's my 2 cents.
I agree. And I have one more. So when we're doing interviews specifically for testers, one of the things that we kind of try to do is we try to push the level of questions up to the point that they are willing to admit that they don't know the answer. It is 100% okay to not know the answer. And this is not something, at least in my experience growing up, in elementary school and into high school and stuff, where, we basically test for correctness. And, you either know it or you don't know it or anything like that. But in the real world, that's not exactly how this works. And it's okay to be like, I don't know the answer. And so the next question we always follow up is like, how would you learn the answer? How would you determine the answer to that? Because at the end of the day, we're not, especially here at BHS, I kind of joke that we are a company of independent consultants, but none of us are ever alone. We always have the complete support of our entire colleagues. The entire knowledge and skill set of VHS as a whole can drop down on a single test and just absolutely annihilate a client if we need to. But it's getting to that point. I understand it's okay not to know the answer. But it's more about how do you solve that problem of not knowing the answer, and encouraging that kind of research mindset. I kind of I say to some people, ignorance is fine. Continued ignorance is a problem. Like, we want to make sure we're enabling our students to be able to ask the questions and go, here's how I can go find the answers. Because, I look back in my third grade teacher, I was always good at math, and stuff. And just things like, you're not going to be carrying a calculator around in your pocket. Has she seen an iPhone? Technology is so much, better, more, equips us and stuff. But especially in the K through 12 generation now and stuff, where they are just, technology is their entire life. They're just ingrained in it and stuff. Making sure that we're still nurturing these concepts of inquisitive curiosity, asking why, but also at the same time, you don't have to have all the answers. This is one of the problems that we see in a lot of testers is they would rather make something up than to admit that they don't know the answer. But none of us know all the answers. And so that was one thing looking back at my education past, I had two particular teachers that's like, it was never about whether I actually knew the answer. It was about, if you don't know it, how are we going to figure out how you can learn this answer? And that's not just cybersecurity. That works for all aspects of life, but it's very beneficial in cybersecurity.
Okay, let me ask the question we always get asked, the burning question of 2024. What about artificial intelligence, and are we all going to lose our job? Brian, would you like to take that one?
AI, yes. One of the industry leaders that I follow on LinkedIn, who's well known for a particular hack he allegedly carried out in the aviation industry years ago, put a prompt into AI recently about 10 different ways to find out what bias it had, and then challenged everybody else to do the same and report back. And I've kind of done that myself with a couple of AIs, and frankly, yeah, we're stuck with them. Pandora's box has been opened. We can't close it. I accept that it can be useful. There are uses for it, but I have as little to do with the beast as I possibly can. But yes, it is out there. It can do some amazing things. It can be very helpful, but I prefer to work something out myself than ask AI how to do it. I have more trust in that than I do in the AI. And at the end of the day, humans created AI, we programmed it, we taught it, we use it. How can it not have a bias?
You're exactly right. I completely agree with you. John, do you have thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, I do. I've actually got quite a few. I'd say first and foremost, AI, can it be used for some things? Yeah, but I never like putting too much trust in it just because AI tends to lack nuance and creativity, you know? Like I don't fear for my job when it comes to AI, especially seeing how I do a lot of stuff in the social engineering and, physical realm. I mean, those are two things I'm super passionate about. I don't think AI is going to come, to anyone's building and shim a door anytime soon. Same thing, like, AI might not be able to, at least not now, hopefully not for a while, have the capability of pulling off, more, I guess, advanced social engineering attacks, like adding my phone number to a manager's contact information and then waiting for employees to call me, something like that. Like an AI wouldn't be able to carry something out like that. Um, I'd also say that AI does have a tendency to make mistakes. This is something that I've seen quite a few times where I'll kind of give myself a little sanity check from time to time with something like ChatGPT. If there's like something like real unique about a network that I just need a quick little, I guess, kick in the brain on. And you'll read things sometimes that, ChatGPT will produce or any other AI, and it's not always right, because I'm not an AI scientist, but they're not right sometimes. So hard to trust when you see something that makes a lot of mistakes.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we were on we were doing some chat GPT this afternoon, and it was just like, yeah, that's not even like, it's just, if you just do a quick Google search, what we were trying to do just doesn't exist. Yet it somehow came up with a solution like that, yeah, it's so I kind of I'm very much middle of the road when it comes to AI. I'm a fairly large consumer of AI, but it is with some very specific guardrails in place. It is a tool. It is not the end all be all. I typically will only use it for validation. One of the use cases that I use it a lot for is if I'm coming up with or stumble across a novel vulnerability that I haven't seen before. I find a proof of concept out there. I go through, look through it, analyze it, make sure I have a fairly firm understanding of what's happening in that code, and then I'll throw it in ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, explain this code to me," to make sure that it is able to corroborate my understanding of the code. And if it doesn't, we're gonna kick this out, and stuff like that. It's again, it's I grew up with Google. Well, really Google 2006, right as I was graduating high school, but it was like, just so, we got so used to this information age and stuff. It's like, how do you trust the results of Google? Like a lot of us just never even questioned it. Yeah, no, it's there. It's legit. Like it's on the top page. It's got to be legit. And then we started to realize, wait, they're an advertising company. They're not concerned about accuracy. But it's about we've got to use it as being cautionary. Like a couple of cases that I'll use it for. I do a lot of stuff with Python. But oftentimes it's like, hey, I've got this really cool Python thing. Like, can you do it in C sharp? Or something that would help me facilitate my test where I could go and do it. But it may take me an hour or two where it's still going to take me a half an hour because it's going to get it wrong, but it's going to get me close enough as a starting point that I can go in and actually debug and figure out what the issues are. It's a really smart but inaccurate intern is the way I treat it. And so it's one of those things like I wouldn't encourage people necessarily to shy away from it. You got to do what's best, what's best for you, but understand that like I purposely put kind of guardrails. I do this with all of my tooling, all of my stuff is like if I don't want to necessarily learn from the AI. I want to use it as a means of confirming the knowledge that I have. I use it for inspiration and various stuff. Um, yeah, yeah, Chat GPT wrecking the future interns. Yeah, pretty much. And in some cases, you can't tell them apart.
Hey, Tim, I'm going to add something to what you're saying there. The AI is a socio-technical system. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, like you and John and Brian said, designed by humans, for humans, being used by humans. And the thing that I'm kind of excited about is as AI and the associated technologies become more and more ubiquitous in society, I think we're going to have a call for more sociologists, psychiatrists, and people who specialize in the social sciences. If we're looking at self-driving cars, why did this particular car not stop for that three-way stop, but it stopped for a two-way stop? Or why did it make certain decisions? It may not be necessarily just a programming decision, but it may be a human decision that we just don't quite understand. So, if I was talking to teachers, I would say, we need people who understand human behavior to step up with those who understand the technologies and help us solve these problems together. That's my 2 cents in all of this. So Andrew, I know you kicked us off here, and I kind of stepped in a little bit. What other questions can we answer for y'all?
Honestly, you answered everything and more that I would have come up with already.
I have a question for you all. So we're professionals. We do this for a living. You all as educators have a much more difficult job than we do. Truly. And what are some of the things, whether it's tools, resources, content, like what do you feel is missing from the industry as a whole that could help you do your job better, that could help you teach, cybersecurity concepts as you're doing other things? One of the big kind of sticking points I have is with a lot of STEM education. I love STEM, big proponent, especially with the space stuff, but nobody's teaching like cyber STEM. And so it's like, what can we, like, how are we letting you all down? And are there things that we could do to help make it and facilitate it better to have these conversations in the future?
Well, I can just answer for myself that I started teaching cybersecurity about like 6 years ago now, 7 years ago. I think about 6 years ago, and early, like just like within the past like 4 years, that's when I stumbled upon BHIS, and what you all have produced so far has been absolutely phenomenal. And so just providing things like backdoors and breaches, I started using that in my classroom this year. So a little bit about my cybersecurity class, we do Cyber Patriot, and as part of Cyber Patriot, we also utilize the Ring curriculum. So I teach Ring curriculum, and then I bring in backdoors and breaches, along with just to kind of give them some idea of like, this is how an attack would actually happen, and I want you to try and figure out a way to actually mitigate this. And then they go into their cybersecurity, their Cyber Patriot work, and I tell them, okay, you don't always know how you're going to go about solving all the issues, and I can't tell you how to solve everything. I can give you hints and clues. I can facilitate some things, but now you're going to have to work with me to figure out, well, what are the questions that we need to ask, and how can we actually answer those? And then, by all means, please document what you're doing, so that not only do you know what you're doing, your team knows what you're doing, and then future teams also know how to go on from what you're doing already. So that's kind of how I've built that, and that's literally built off of everything that I've seen from BHIS and what I've been a part of, and actually working through Antisyphon and stuff like that. So honestly, providing those awesome and amazing tools for us and just giving us training on things like that, you get a few interested teachers in that, and we'll run with that.
I can live with that answer. That is, it's the reason why we do this is, we kind of joke within BHS is we proudly suck at capitalism. We give more stuff away than we ever should, but it's because we truly believe in the mission that other people are doing, and we want to be able to facilitate that. And so, like that just that to hear, that things like backdoors and breaches and stuff like that is making it into the classroom. Like we've got it literally from the boardroom down to the classroom. And it's having a profound effect across all of those. That's just it's humbling that to know that that's something that a lot of people have put blood, sweat, and tears into is actually truly making a difference. In some cases, in ways that nothing I can do as a tester would ever be able to do. It's hard for me to write a report that the board of directors can understand. But when they can take my report and map it to a card game, it clicks.
I haven't engaged with any of your curriculum like Andrew has. Do you have it like cross-linked with like this is how it attaches to a math standard or this is how it attaches to an English standard, those sorts of things?
No, we don't. Not from that perspective.
I was just wondering, Tim, talking about Cyber Patriot and that sort of thing, and I'm not sure that you could really do it with, say, a schools network, but maybe there could be a server set up in a school and run things like Rita and AC Hunter in those cybersecurity classes and get that sort of blue team side from that, where you're actually getting some actual data at a very usable level, really, because you can go as deep as you want into that stuff.
Listen, if there was a classroom that had a Rita sensor with a dashboard up on the screen, I would have paid attention in class. I'm just saying, like I just, yeah. And that's part of it is like, just, getting, getting people exposed to this type of stuff, early on, get them, excited. Cause like, it'd been one of those things, like I would love to have just, some kind of dashboard. Teacher never talks about it. It's just there. It's just, updating and stuff and trying to it's going to drive me nuts as a student. Like I got to figure out what it's doing, how it's doing, why it's doing it, all of this type of stuff. And it would, it can be really just kind of inspiring and motivating for students. But that's awesome that, like we're going to keep going. I mean, we got a comic book company, a publishing company now, with the future it's getting ready to come out sometime. I don't remember when. And so, and a lot of it's just more, graphic novel form of some of our pen testing stories and stuff. But it's, same way that some of us grew up watching like hackers and sneakers and war games. Like this is just the next kind of generation of inspiration, and making sure that we're getting that information, that those resources down to the people on the front lines, such as our educators, is such an important aspect. I will plug, if you're not on Discord, you should be, because we have two Discords. We have the BHS one, but we also have the Antisyphon one as well. But in BHS, we actually have an educators channel, just for educators and stuff. And there's always fantastic conversations and free resources getting dropped in there, and stuff like that. I would definitely, recommend, if you're not a part of that community, try to get plugged in there, because we're pulling, like we're paying attention to kind of what the requests are and seeing how as BHS we could potentially fill those gaps in those requests to make sure that you guys have all the tools and resources you can, for as cheap as possible. And by cheap, we mean free.
Well, awesome, guys. Thank you so much for everything that you talked about us with. And I think there's definitely some questions that we probably could not answer everything tonight, but that we could definitely still have a continued conversation on, and just to see what we could bring back down to K-12, and still have something in South Dakota, since BHS was South Dakota born, and we'll keep doing some amazing things in the state.
Awesome. And I can't speak for everybody, but I love doing this type of stuff, and because this is part of just us giving back to the kind of community that's helped us grow as individuals and things like that. So if you do have those questions, have us back. We're an open book.
What's the best way for us to share out your information? Is it direct them towards the Discord, find a web page, certain email that we should have them direct questions
Yeah,
to?
so what that's the hardest question of the night. How would be the best way? I would just probably say um definitely Discord. Also, and I think Rachel probably has the contact. Reach out to Deb Wigley, who she jumped on for just a little bit. She's our director of, I don't know if she's got some fancy title, but director of community or something like that. And she's one of the big facilitators for this type of stuff, and making sure that people have all the information they need, and being able to connect the dots, so to say, so to speak. So definitely Discord. Reach out to Deb. Deb's the one that literally sent a message. She's like, "Hey, they reached out. Who can do it?" And it says, we got people sign. I was like, yeah, we should be able to do this. We should be able to do this. So you're probably not going to have a shortage of volunteers to help do whatever you need.
I'll add to what Tim is saying. If you ever need people to come in and talk about a topic, we're happy to do that as well.
Remind me of your coverage. Like you have people in New Zealand, but also like distributed across the state of South Dakota, or is it just pretty much in
boy.
Western South Dakota?
We've got a bunch. I say a bunch. The largest contingent is going to be in and around Sturgis, Spearfish, all of that area. I think we might have one or two people in Sioux Falls or in that general area. And then we've got people in and around, like in neighboring states in Iowa and various things like that. So, depending on what the request is, what the ask is, oftentimes it's if it's not virtual, if you want something in person or whatever, we can figure out how to facilitate things. People like to drive and travel and various stuff like that. But yeah, I don't even know where all we're located. I'm outside St. Louis. I know Malone's in Chicago, and we got people in Chicago, tons in Florida, Virginia, California.
So Tim,
we're pretty much everywhere.
We're talking about this today. We're at the point now where we talk about the states we're not in. We're not in Mississippi, Texas, New Hampshire.
No, we are in Texas.
Oh, we are? Okay. Well, yeah. So we've flipped it around. We start talking about where we're not located.
Then we've got the team over in Poland and that sort of thing, doing a lot of the course production and development and things.
And
we got team over in
India
doing
and Singapore
work.
So basically any cybersecurity topic that you're interested in, we can cover it.
If you're going into the Discord links, chances are you'll probably run across me because I'm more or less resident in Discord from when I get up to when I go to bed. Just part of my role, and I sort of keep looking for, one, the nasties that are trying to get in there and do bad stuff, and two, the people that are, how do I do this? How can I get help for this? And that's pretty much what I'm doing all day, every day. When I'm not doing that, I'm bothering people like Tim for the, hey, where are all your resources for this last course that you're producing so we can get this course out for you and things like that. And so, yeah.
Oh, hey, would one of you guys like to mention what we're doing on YouTube? The webinars and the news?
Oh yeah. So every Monday we do a live, we call it talking about news, specifically InfoSec news. It's basically a video podcast that you can also download after the fact, where we just go through all the topics that are kind of relevant on that day or the last couple of days. And then on Wednesdays, actually backing up, on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Central within Antisyphon, we actually have an Ask Me Anything, where a bunch of Antisyphon instructors will come on Discord, and our students can just ask us anything and everything. And it runs the full gamut from career advice, certifications versus education versus experience versus some new vulnerability or whatever like that. Then Wednesdays we do an anti-cast through Antisyphon. This is typically led by Antisyphon instructors. It's typically like a snippet of one of their courses or something like that. And then on Thursdays on the BHS side on YouTube, as well as Zoom, we have our webcast there, and these tend to be a little bit more focused and oftentimes more technical in concept. Stuff like one of the most recent ones was new DLL sideloading adventures that we found within Microsoft environments here, and Microsoft says, yeah, that's not a problem, and so. Just a whole bunch of stuff. All that stuff is available online after the fact. You can watch it live. This is, especially if you've got some older students that are, that are expressing interest in stuff. This would be especially that AMA or something. Like, unfortunately, it's probably during school time or something. But just getting involved in that Discord, asking questions. There's a plethora of resources, and there's an endless list of people that are willing to step up and answer these questions for anybody and everybody.
And could you just imagine, Zach, if all of a sudden we had all the schools represented here tonight suddenly turn up on the AMA with their cybersecurity
classes? Would be amazing.
Zach's head would just.
It's like, yeah, we've got everything from second graders to high schoolers now. It's like it would be that would be cool.
What other questions can we answer for you guys and gals?
Where's the best place to get started if you know nothing?
I would say the fundamentals, the foundations, some command line knowledge in Linux and Windows. Know the difference between Linux and Windows and what it can do, that sort of thing. Within our course calendars, probably the packet capture type classes with, sorry, I forget his name off the top of my head right now.
Chris Brenton,
that's the one. And also John Strand's SOC core skills, followed by getting started in security, followed by active defense and active defense, active countermeasures.
Yeah.
But they are, I would say, more high school to older rather than the younger ones. But
yeah,
just John's teaching pattern, you could probably get the younger generations totally just loving it just because of the way he teaches, let alone the subject.
Yeah. I posted this in the chat. So with Antisyphon, we have an entire series that's called our Pay What You Can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally that. There are like default like rates that are set. But if you actually go in and there's a place where you can click like, and you can literally get all these trainings for $0 or like $25 or something like that. And just the whole combination of those alone are well worth the price of admission, especially if you go the free route. But it's really, there's a pretty good breadth of topics and stuff, because one of the challenges that we have is, well, somebody will come to us like, I want to get into cybersecurity. Cool. So what do you want to do? I want to be in cybersecurity. No. What do you want to do in cybersecurity? Because there's everything from GRC, there's everything from physical security, social engineering, penetration tests. It also can be, you can look at it as like secure secure software development, project management. There's so many aspects to cybersecurity. Like you got to have a little bit more guidance to that and stuff. And so this is a great way of like kind of weeding out like the things that you're really interested in, then topics and stuff to kind of pinpoint. It's like, yeah, I want to go down this rabbit hole and see if it's something that I'm actually good at. I mean, there's everything from SOC core skills to CISSP training for more experienced people, PCI, MITRE ATT&CK frameworks, packet captures. I'm just going through. There's an introduction to AI for cybersecurity professionals that Joff Thayer and Derek Banks launched a couple of months ago, actually probably like 2 months ago. And that one's been hugely successful. Yeah. Is there a quiz for deciding? No, we need a Myers-Briggs for cybersecurity, which I say that and I absolutely despise the Myers-Briggs because it's a complete scam. But yeah, no, there's really not. It's very much up in the air, and it's going to depend on what kind of what you find appealing and what you're willing to slog through, because it's all a grind at some point in time. So
is it TryHackMe that has the Christmas CTF, the advent of Christmas CTF?
That's the but the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge. Is that what you're thinking about?
No, I haven't done a Sans one.
Brian, are you talking
so
about
TryHackMe has one as
Cyber?
well.
Is it TryHackMe's one? Because I think the last 2 times I've done that, there's been something in there where you go in and you answer a series of questions, and based on the questions, how you answer them, it sort of steers you in sort of like one of 6 directions as to what might be a good fit for you. That may be, given that it's coming up in a month and a half, 2 months time, starts the end of November, goes through to Christmas. That may be a very fun and friendly way of sort of going through and asking some of those questions and trying some of the missions for each day and just seeing where people feel comfortable, what they enjoy doing.
The thing I would remind everybody is that it's all completely fluid. I maintain that the absolute best pen testers were once sysadmins and network admins. And the best defenders were once offensive people. And so we see a lot of, like middle career transitioning from one side to the other, or, sitting in the middle in purple team and stuff. And that's one of the things that this industry as a whole provides you. If you're willing to do the work to get up to speed and stuff, you're not locked into this one avenue. Most of us do tend to lock into a specific avenue and stuff, but you're not, if you can go, I mean, I encourage everybody's like, I want to get into cybersecurity. Cool. Go to the help desk. Start there. Like, well, that's not cybersecurity. Go to the help desk. Why? Because you're going to hear every complaint. You're going to understand every problem in the organization. And then if you can start figuring out how to solve some of those pain points, both from an operational standpoint, from a procedural standpoint, all of this stuff, you're going to be so much better off long-term in your career, having dealt with that frontline grind of customers and users and all of this other stuff. That's one of the best ways. It's not the prettiest way to get in, but it is one of the most effective ways to get in and actually understand, how it's easy for me to go to an organization and say, you need to patch all of your software 100%, no questions asked. Okay. But if I write that in a report, I'm kind of doing my client a disservice, because the reality is I've been on the business side. I know that there are reasons you can't. I worked for an organization. We had a contract that we had to maintain a Windows 95 system for 30 years. Yep. Which means box is still running right now. It's still available. It's still technically accessible on the internet. Not directly, but it's still that, there are just reasons that you like that because of stuff. And this is kind of one of the things that makes us, I feel like, BHS better at our jobs than a lot of other alternative companies out there, is we take the time to try to understand the why. Like, okay, I know you're not just leaving this stuff unpatched because you're lazy. Most people want to do the right thing. Let's try to figure out what, is it just too much? Are you too far behind? And it's hard to catch up, or various things like that. But yeah, this is, Brian's a great example of, like, late career shift into cyber, and it's all possible, whether young people or older, more experienced people, different skill sets. Everybody's welcome here.
I started mid-ish 50s in the transition.
That's awesome, Brian. I didn't know that.
Yeah, John's not older than me. I keep telling him he's not old. He turned it around one day and said, "No, but I've got more maturity in cyber than you have." Yeah, okay.
He has more maturity in cyber than all of us combined.
But yeah, it's never stop learning, never give up, and document as you go. Probably the three big things that I would stress.
I would agree. So, Andrew, Rachel, Ben, I think we're getting close to the end of our time together. Were there other questions you wanted us to cover that we didn't cover?
Nothing from my end, Rachel.
I don't think so. You covered a lot of things, and there were moments that were over my head, but I really appreciated hearing your perspective and how enthusiastic you are about your jobs and the things that you do. I'm a middle school teacher, so giving I got called a hacker the other day when I did Control X and then Control V. So my middle schoolers are not exactly intelligent about when it comes to all this other stuff, but I want to give them a little bit of a taste of what is available. And kind of pique their interest about the fact that this is out there and is a possibility for them.
I don't know. I have middle schoolers that, well, now high schoolers that would talk about in middle school. They found a way to turn the Wi-Fi off on their Chromebook and then turn it back on so they could actually get to the games they wanted. So they found their own hacks around to get games. That's their motivation.
And that's why I'm glad I'm not a teacher, because I'd be the one to be like, high five, like, don't do that.
Don't do that, but good job.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a balance
and-
there between saying don't do that and yeah, good job. It's there. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the part, like as a like I really think is tough from an educator standpoint, of like, because there's moments where you got to be like, man, I wish I could just tell them how awesome what they just did was, but I can't feed that beast at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you have our deepest sympathies for, like I said, y'all's job is harder than ours. We just work with computers. And they mostly do what we tell them to. Your
Mostly.
subjects probably don't.
Well, I thank you for your time tonight, and I look forward to whatever partnership we can have in the future, and promoting what you all do out there in the hills and throughout the world, and hopefully this kind of thing can continue every once in a while and get more people interested in it.
I like.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.